life began for Steve Pepper in that spicy hotbed of adventure known as Salt Lake City, Utah. Steve's father, Morris, was the heir, along with brother Ben, to the family's scrapyard business, Utah Barrel and Cooperage. In addition to steam cleaning and reconditioning beer barrels, the yard, as it was known in the Pepper family, recycled scrap metal. Steve's mom, Clara, a remarkable cook, spent much of her time arranging large family gatherings. Steve had one sibling, older sister Trudy. From an early age, Steve knew he was destined for a life of adventure. Here he is trying to leave home on his trike with his sister Trudy in tow. Growing up, Steve loved school, but he hated his twice-weekly Hader classes, which he had to attend in preparation for his bar mitzvah. One time, he locked himself in the car with the keys so he couldn't be driven to the lessons. Steve was an outstanding high school student. He was on the debate team where he won several honors his senior year. At a tournament hosted by Brigham Young University, he and his partner performed so well that they were offered scholarships on the spot. Despite the impressive offer from BYU, Steve chose to strike out on his own. He attended Stanford in the late 1960s, a time of great change in our country. Here's Steve in one of his honors program classes. When it came time to declare a major, Steve was not interested in any of the bland standard options, so he used his considerable debating skills to create his own. He adventurously called it Social Thought and Institutions, which just happened to be the title of the honors program. Steve spent his junior year at Stanford in Germany, where he was able to travel to Russia and throughout Europe. Extensive research could not uncover why he embarked on this journey in an Italian paratrooper uniform. In his senior year at Stanford, Steve attended a number of Vietnam War protests, though he says he was always on the outside looking in. We wonder whether his unique style of facial hair in that period reflects his free spirit or was yet another attempt at traveling incognito. Steve was captured by the local paper blowing bubbles at his Stanford graduation. Here he is with his no doubt extremely impressed parents. Who knew you could learn how to blow bubbles as part of a Stanford major in social thought and institutions? Next up, Steve headed east to attend Yale Law School. Among his circle of friends was one Hillary Rodham. Later, Hillary was on the hiring team at the University of Arkansas School of Law, where Steve got his first job as a law professor. According to Steve, being able to talk about the Yale law experience with Hillary made it one of the best interviews ever. Now that's networking in action. Steve remembers his constitutional law class at Yale with particular fondness. It was taught by the legendary John Hart Ely, who confessed to Steve that he had one of the top 3 exams in the class. The school year ended when the Bobby Seale murder trial came to New Haven. Steve remembers the odor of tear gas wafting through the dorms while he was studying, or at least he claims it was tear gas. The first year at Yale was so strenuous, Steve took a year off to reconnect with the western landscape. He hiked through Yosemite, the Wasatch Mountains in Utah, and even helped build a cabin on the Eel River. Here's a stout-hearted crew of adventurers after a day of strenuous berry hunting. But it wasn't all fun and games during Steve's gap year. He got a job doing research at the Carnegie Foundation on a project involving the study of law schools. He did such a good job, he was given credit on the title page of the 1972 Carnegie Report on Legal Education. When Steve returned to Yale, he won the school's Moot Court competition, arguing in front of a federal circuit court judge, a federal district court judge, and U.S. Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart. It was only after Steve had received the Thurman Arnold Prize for winning the Yale Moot Court competition in front of a completely full Sterling auditorium that it occurred to him it might have been a good idea to invite his parents. No wonder pics of Steve at Yale are hard to come by. After Yale, Steve traveled to Denver for his job as an associate attorney with the firm of Holland & Hart. Steve not only learned how to be a lawyer at Holland & Hart, the law firm was also responsible for him meeting his wife. Another associate at the firm, Mark Levy, introduced Steve to his sister Karen. Turns out Karen lived only 2 blocks from Steve. The arrangement was so convenient, they were married soon thereafter.
My first impressions was that he was interesting, that he was kind of modest. I knew he was really smart. He'd gone to these great university and law school and stuff, but he didn't, I asked him, so where did you go to undergraduate? He said, well, I was on the West Coast. And I said, well, where was that? He said, oh, I went to Stanford. I said, well, that's great, that's wonderful. I said, how about law school? And he says, well, I went east for law school. And so if I hadn't asked any more, he wouldn't have told me.
After his stint as an attorney, Steve went on the law teaching market and landed his first job at the University of Arkansas. He asked to teach constitutional law and contracts, so they gave him torts and legal ethics. He was so happy with those assignments that he's held onto them for his entire career. Steve came to DU Law as a visitor in 1981. His torts class that year included DU Law star Lisa Hogan, now at Brownstein, and Mitch Morrissey, now Denver DA. Steve was voted Professor of the Year on that first visit. The next year, he was offered a permanent faculty position. Since then, Steve has won Professor of the Year 4 times. Of course, one of those years, he was also runner-up for the notorious Bloody Hatchet Award. This leads us to wonder if the 2 awards might cancel each other out.
He was like totally the best teacher ever.
He was the worst at teaching.
His teaching was just right. Professor Pepper, you taught me and a lot of other first-year law students that the practice of law is a practice that's filled with passion, so thank you for that. Congratulations on the award.
Professor Pepper, you taught us not only that law is something to be practiced with a passion, but it's something to be practiced with ethics and with our full minds and hearts engaged. Congratulations on a wonderful career and being a great teacher.
You're probably right. I learned a bunch. Congratulations, Steve.
Steve is a well-known scholar in 2 fields, religious freedom and legal ethics. He is the only DU Law professor to have won the Association of American Law Schools Scholarly Paper Competition. His article, The Lawyer's Amoral Ethical Role, has become a standard in the field of legal ethics and is referenced in many casebooks. Several years later, Steve earned an even bigger prize, a publication in the Yale Law Journal for his outstanding article, Counseling at the Limits of the Law. His Yale article has become a classic and is often cited in law review articles. A devoted father, Steve has 2 daughters, Rachel and Ellen. Rachel was born prematurely, but came along nicely after a bit of a lengthy stay in the hospital. Ellen remembers how surprised her dad was every time one of the girls had a birthday. Of course, the new members of the Pepper family were prepared for adventure from the start. Here they are setting out for one of the many family camping trips. Over the years, the Pepper family has traveled extensively all over the world. These days, as a respected torts professor, Steve spends his leisure hours practicing only safe activities where no risk or liability is involved. He is justifiably proud of his family. Steve's wife, Karen, received her master's in social work at DU. She has worked as a social worker for the Denver Public Schools for over 20 years. Daughter Rachel received her PhD at Harvard. She just finished a postdoc at UC Berkeley and is on her way to be a professor of biophysics at the University of Puget Sound.
Congratulations, Dad. We're really all proud of you and the family, and this is such a great honor that you really deserve after all your hard work for many years.
Ellen attended the University of Michigan and then went to law school at CU Boulder. She is now an account executive at a Denver-based internet marketing company.
Congratulations, Dad. So proud of you, so happy, love you.
During his remarkable career, Steve has mentored many DU faculty, including DU Law stars Alan Chen and Roberto Carrata. But he has been especially helpful to his more junior legal ethics colleagues.
He's incredibly generous with his time, and he's willing to talk extensively both about teaching and how to be great in the classroom, and about scholarship and how to produce scholarship that is useful and readable and thoughtful. And it's his ability and his willingness and his passion for talking about both of those things that really makes him a great colleague.
Outstanding teacher, renowned scholar, adventurous traveler, beloved husband and father, and now DU Law Star. We proudly present the 2014 Robert B. Yegi Award for Excellence in Teaching to Steve Pepper.